Hey, hi everyone. Is audible now? Guys, is it audible? Okay, great. So basically in the last class, guys, we have discussed something about how to work with multiple components. How to work with multiple components. So that was the last class we have discussed, right? And then after that, we have understood that when you're working with the multiple components, how we can share the data among the components there. Okay. So just recall for the 5 minutes what we have been, covered in the last class there. So I'll be just opening the paint. Let me make you to understand here. As I said here, when we develop your Angular application, it is always create a root module. And inside that, it is going to create a root component whose component name is what? App.component.ts. You can, right? So app component is a root component. App component is a root component. So inside that, we can just create the multiple components. Okay, we can create the multiple components here. We can create the multiple components here. Okay. So for example, here we have been created a component that is a parent component, right? We also created another component. It is what? A child component. Okay, we have created a child component. Okay, we have created a child component. Now, so basically here we have just understood that how properly we can work with the parent component and how we can create the child component. Okay, that is the last class we have understood. Okay, and then if you just look at those, if a parent component, if the parent component want to send the data, okay, if the parent component want to send the data here, right? It is something like this. So we had the parent component, and then we had a child component. We had a parent component, and we had a child component. So let me write here. This is your parent component, and this is your child component. Taken, right? So the question is, in some cases, like we found that if the parent component want to send the data to child component, just wait now, I'm getting some disturbance. Please silent, guys. Okay. Yeah, sorry for interface because people are okay. Okay. So what we're talking, guys, now? What we're talking? So we have the two components, that is a parent component as well as child component, right? So in some cases, we found that if you want to exchange the data between the components, so that means what if that if the parent want to share the data to the child, okay? What if that if the parent want to share the data to the child, and what if that if the child want to send the data to the parent component? Okay, guys? Yes or no? So that means here, if you see that there is a communication between the components, yes or no? There is a communication between the components. So the question is how we can exchange the data between the two components, like a parent to child and the child to parent here. If you want to share the data between the parent to child, we can use step one. What we can use, guys, now? Step one. What we can do, guys, now? We can define the property inside the parent. Yes or no? Step two, what we do, guys, now? We use property binding. Have you remember, guys, yesterday? Use what? Property binding here. We use a property binding here. And third step, in order to receive the data, from the parent to child, we use a decorator. What is a decorator we use, ma'am? Yes, sir. So there are two things, guys. There are two things here you have to understand. Okay. So if the parent want to send the data to the child here, so in this case, we can define a property inside the parent component, and then we can use a property binding here. And then finally, in the child component, we can use a decorator called as input here. So there are two things here. One thing is what? We can use property binding. And second thing is we use a decorator called as input. Right now? Yes, sir. So these are the two things probably we'll be using here when you're working with the exchange the data from parent component to child component. Okay. So how we can do, guys, now? Can you just help me now? As of now, how we can do here now? Once again. So let's do one thing. Let's do from the scratch. I'm just deleting all the things for you. I'm just deleting all the things. Okay. So I'll just remove here. We can get some errors also. I'm just closing all the things now. Okay, now? So I'll just remove all the things here. Fine. Nothing is there, guys. The plain project here. Okay. So I'm closing all the things. Let me start from the beginning. Yeah. Can you just help me, guys, very quickly that how many components we have to create, guys? One is parent component. Second one is child component. Let's create here NG, G for genital, C for let's create a parent component. Next one, we'll create what? Child component. Done? Yes? Yeah. Okay. So now I want to use the parent selector. What is the parent selector? What is the parent selector? App-parent here. So where we want to use? Inside the root here. Inside the root here. Let's open the root now. Can you just help me, guys, now? App-parent here, right? So let's test as of now whether this application is working on npm start here. Okay, let's open here now, browser. Now, can you see, guys, now parent is working perfectly? Okay. Now, what is our requirement, people, now? What is our requirement? We want to send the data from parent to child here. What is the step one here? Define one property inside where parent here. Let's share message parent message of type string equal to from parent here. Something I'm just sending here. You can, right? Parent message. So we are using a property whose property name is parent message. And this property where you have to use, guys, no? This property where we have to use. Come on, where you have to use? We have to use what as a property binding. Where you have to use inside the property binding? What I told you, guys? If you want to send the data, we use what? Property binding here. So what we can do? Step two. Go to the child component. What is the selector we have? App-child here. Okay, now? So go to the parent component. Can you use it guys now here? App hyphen child here. Now, how we can bind the data? How we can bind the data? Property binding. Okay, equal to paste. So I'm just pasting here. So what is that?
Parent message.
Parent message. Right? Parent message. Okay. Now, what should be this one here? This should be the property of y. That is property of what? Child here. So let's get the property here inside the child. Okay, y of type string here. I'm just giving some message. Okay, now, right? But how we can receive the data in the child component? With the help of @input decorator. Okay, now, and where it is defined inside the code. To input it here. Now done, guys. Problem is solved here now, right? So now, with the help of property binding here, we are passing the data, and inside the child component, we are receiving the data with the help of @input decorator, right? Finally, this y message where we can use inside the child component here. Receive data from child, from parent component here. What is that, ma? Y. Okay, na? Go and check it now. Okay, so as of now, I'll remove these two things here. Necessary. Not required. Okay, can you see guys now? Receive the data from the parent component. Yes or not? Receive the data from the parent component. So are we getting this one? Put the child component here. Yes or not? Are we receiving the data here? Yes, we are receiving the data here. Now, this is a step one you are done, guys. This is a step one. We receive the data from parent component from the parent. Yes, perfectly is working here, right? So now, as of now, if you just go back here, as of now, I'm sending the data, some property data to the child here, and I was receiving with the help of @input decorator here. And we are using what? Property binding here. Now, if you see that the data, okay, let's do one thing. Let's send proper data. Okay. Hello child, something. How are you? Something I'm sending here. Okay. No? So some message I'm sending here so that we'll have the clear understanding. Hello child, how are you? So now the child is responsible to send the message saying that I was fine here. To whom? To the parent here. So the question is how we can send the data, or we can send the data from child component to the parent component. How we can send the data from child component to the parent component. So in order to send the data from the child component to the parent component, we have to follow some procedure, guys. We have to follow some procedure there. So what is the procedure we are going to follow here? Okay, let's see the procedure. Step one, create the button inside the child component .html file. Here, whenever the user has click on the button, okay, the respective function or method has to invoke, okay, where we write the code to evict or to emit, you can say emit some data to through the event. Which event here? Customized event. What ma? Customized event. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of this one? See, the general idea is when you're working from child component to the parent component, if I want to send the data here, you cannot send it directly there. Because if you just look at as of now, when you're sending the data from parent to child component, I was using a selector. What is a selector I was using, guys? Now, app-child here. This is a selector I was using or not? Yes, I was using this selector here. Yes or no? Okay. Okay. So why only we are using this selector? Why we can't use a normal tag, ma? Why we can't use a normal tag? If I use a normal tag here, then how we can recognize the component inside the parent here? Yes or no? We cannot recognize, right? So that's the reason we are using this selector, the child selector inside the parent here. Now, when we are using this selector here, we are using the property binding. So that means if I want to send the data from parent to child, I was using the selector and I was defining one property binding so that I can easily pass the data to the child component here. Okay, na? So at this point, I was using, guys, what? What I'm using here now? Property binding. Yes or not? We are using what? Property binding here. Now, where inside this property binding, so y is what, ma? Y is what? Y is a property. Y is a property. Y is a property. Y is a property of the child component. Y is a property of the child component. So where is taking this one? And finally, what is doing, guys, now? Finally, is interacting with the template. Finally, is interacting with the template. And inside the template, it was using this data. Yes or no? This is how it is using or not? Right? This is how it is using the data. And so finally, we got the data here. So this is your child component.html. Understood now, all of you? Right? So probably here, whenever we're sending the data, what exactly we're doing, guys, now? We were passing this data from parent to child with the help of property binding. And this is y is a property of the child component. And the parent message is a property of parent component here, right? And finally, this y property we're using inside the child component.html. That means inside the template so that we can get the data. So that's the reason we are getting this data here. Receive the data from parent component to child component. This is okay now? Have you understood now? Okay. Now, come back here now. Okay. Next, now the question is, how we can send the data? How we can send the data from where? From child to parent here. So if you want to send the data from parent to child, child to parent, in this case, we need to take the help of events. What one? We have to take the help of events as of now. Okay. So here, this is the event equal to this event name actually. Space is not there. I'm just writing down, guys. I'm writing down equal to, okay, function name by passing this event here. Okay, by passing that event here. Now look at it, guys, now. Okay. So now if you just look at here, we have to use what? What we have to use, ma? We have to use here event binding. Come on, guys. We have to use what? Event binding here. This is your event binding. Yes or no? So when you see the event binding here, what is this here? Event name. So this event name you are creating here. What you know, guys, now? You are creating this event here. So that means you are creating this event here. Event name of type event emitter. Okay, event emitter. So you were creating what? Event emitter explicitly. Come on, guys. You're creating what? Explicitly. Why you're creating this event? So that whenever the parent want to receive this data, the parent can receive this data through this event here. So the question is how we can send this data through event from child component to parent component. In this case, we can use, what we can use, ma? We can use @output decorator. What we use, guys, now? We use @output decorator. Are you understanding more? Are you understanding here? Is it clear? Okay. So here see the step one, create the button inside the child dot component here. So I'm going to create one button here. Send data from child. Okay. This is a button I'm going to create. Okay. Right. And for this button, I'm going to use a predefined event. Predefined event that is on click. Which event, ma? On click here. And whenever I click this one here, I want to call the function whose function name is what, ma? Send the data. So this function here we can write it here. Send the data. And then whatever the event we have been generated, with this event, we can call a method that is emit by passing some data. Understood, guys? No? By passing some data here. Okay, now? So tell me, guys, first step, what we have to do? We have to create the button inside where child, inside where, ma? Child component. So write properly here. Child component. Okay, na? Inside the child.component.html. Next, here, whenever the user has click on the button, so I'm using what predefined event, that is on click. So function will call here. Whenever you click on the button, function will call here. Again, function will call here. So whenever the function has been called, inside this function, we have been written the code. We have written the code, which is used to send the data. Which is used to send the data through event. Which is used to send the data through event here. Are you understanding now? Are you understanding now? So finally, this data is going to send to this event, and this data can be received by the parent here by invoking this function there. By invoking what a function here. Fine. So let's see that how we can do it, guys. Now, step one. Okay, this is okay now. This one is okay. Now let's go for this one. From child component to parent component. So first open the child.component.html. Close this all the things. Okay, first open what one? Child.component.html. I was opening here. So tell me, guys, what I supposed to do, ma? Come on, guys. What do we have to do? We have to create one button. So let me do one thing. Just I'm using HR tag for look and feel better as of now. Let's create one button. Okay. Send data from child to parent. Okay, guys. Okay, so I'm creating one button here. So as of now, there is no event. Let's add one event, predefine event, that is on click. So whenever with this function has been, event has been raised, we have to call a function whose function name is what, ma? Send the data. So let's create this method. Where we have to create this method, ma?
Child component.
Inside the child component. So let's go here, child.component.ts, and let's create it here. Okay, na? Right. Now, so here what we supposed to do? Here, what we supposed to do? Here we supposed to create our own event, which is helping us to generate some output and keep that output inside that event and send to the parent here. So in order to do that, let's create here my own event whose type is what? Event. What, ma? Emitter. And this event emitter is belonging to the Angular core. So that is the reason we have taken from core here. So here we need to specify the generic, ma, like what type of data you want to send, and you create object for event emitter here. Create object for what? Event emitter. So what we have done as of now, we have created the event emitter object. Why we have created, ma? Why we have created here? Because I have to send the data. Okay, for sending the data, which decorator we use? What, ma? Output. and where it is available inside the core tag. So define it here. Understood now? Is it clear now? So now finally we have been created our own event here, and whose reference is what? My event. So whenever the user has click on this button, send the data, this function is going to call, and inside this function, I'm going to store some data inside this event by using a method called as what? Emit. So what do you want to send here? Okay, hello, I am fine. That's it, something. Is it clear, guys? Now? So this is a message want to send by whom? Who want to send this message? This message want to send by whom? Child to parent here. Okay, na guys? Okay, na? So tell me what we have done. We have created a button. We have created one button. Okay, and for this button, we have added the predefined event that is on click. So whenever the user has click on this button, it is going to call a particular method here. Inside this method, what we are doing here, we want to emit the data. We want to emit the data. So how we can emit the data? First, we have to create the event here with the help of event emitter, and whose reference is my event. Okay, now. So why we are using @output decorator, because we want to send the data from parent here. So that's the reason we're using @output here. So in this event, that means in this property, we want to store some data. Which data here? Some data here. Okay. So that this data we can send to the parent here. Right? So this step is clear for everyone. Up to here is clear, no? Or any confusion here? Very quickly you have to tell me. Right? Okay. Can I proceed? Can I proceed, people? Okay, na? Till here is okay. What we have done as of now? Whenever the user has clicked on this one, function has been called. Inside that we are emitting the data. Okay. Now, parent. Okay. Parent has to receive this data or not? Parent has to receive this data or not? So how the parent can receive the data? By using this event. So where the parent has to use this event? Inside this selector. Which selector? app-child, which we have defined inside the parent.component.html there. So second step. Second step. Step number 2. Inside the parent.component.html, okay, inside the computer, we have to use the selector, that is child, and inside the selector, we need to use the event. Okay, we have to use what? Event here. How we are going to use, guys, now? Go to the parent.component.html. Close this one. Close this one. Okay. Go to where, ma? Parent.component.html. Right. So already we are using the selector, ma? Yes. So this is for what? Sending the data from where? Parent to child. Now child want to send the data to the parent through this selector. Okay. Can you see that, ma? It is showing here my event. So now call the function. Let me write our own function. Receive data by passing the event by $event. This is how we have to pass the event here. So this data we are passing here. Okay, na? So now why is getting this error, ma? I'll just write it here. Just write it here. Okay, na? Right. So why is getting this error? Because there is no method or there is no function inside parent.component.ts. So what we have to do? We have to create this method. We have to create this method inside the parent.component.ts, which accepts some data of type any and is not written anything here. Yes or not? Yes or not? So this data we have to receive. Okay, this data we have to receive. Once we receive this data, I'm going to create one child data receive of type string. Okay, na? And I want to store inside this one. Are you understanding this now? So what we done guys now? Inside this, what is the logic I've written now? So whatever the data like this, go to this head symbol, right? No, it's not getting error. Whenever this event is raised, it call the function whose function name is receive data, and he will pass the data. This data I was storing in a property whose property name is child data receive. Finally, this property I'm going to use inside the parent component here. Receive data from child. That's it. Understood, guys? Now, is it clear? Go and test it now. Okay, can you see, guys? Now, first thing is parent has sent the data. Yes or not? To the child component. Is it working now? Now, child want to send the data. Yes. Is it working perfectly or not? Because we are not use any CSS. When I use a CSS, then I can align properly. When I use a CSS, I can align properly. So what it should become first, what should become second. So according to that, we can do it here. Are you understanding now? Is it clear, guys? No, vice versa. Okay, na? So that it can be. Can you see here? Receive the data from child. So this is your child component, and this is your parent component. This is your child component. This is your parent component. Refresh it now. Send data from child. Yes or no? Child has been received the data or not? Sorry, parent has received the data or not? Yes, parent has received the data here. Okay, na? Everyone is understood, ma? Is it clear, or I have to repeat once again, ma? All of you? I have to repeat once again, or it's clear for everyone? So tell me, guys, what we have to do now? Once again. So here the thing is, let's come back here now. Okay, look at now. So we had the two components. We had the parent component. We had the child components, right? So parent, yes, I'm explaining. Okay, so parent want to send the data from parent component to child components. So in order to send the data from parent component to the child component, we can just take the help of two things. One is property binding, so that we can send it, and we can receive this data in the child component with the help of @input decorator. Okay, now this is clear now for everyone. Okay, now the thing is, what if the child component want to send the data? What if the child component want to send the data to the parent here? In this case, we have to take the help of event binding. Here. So what I'm doing here for this, I was creating my own event inside the child component with the help of interface, whose interface name is, or for a class whose class name is event emitter. What my event emitter? So why I'm creating objects? So that I can store some data. Inside this. Whenever this event is raised in the parent, it is going to invoke that function and pass that data to the parent component. Okay, na? Right? So in order to create that event, we are using what? Event emitter. Now, how to send the data? We can use what? @output decorator here. So what is the strategy I was applying here? Simply, right? My strategy is like, I can see this function using the button is optional. It is not mandatory that this is only for understanding purpose. I have created the button. Otherwise, you can send directly also by using the constructor. Whenever is component is initialized, immediately constructor is invoked and we initialize the data. So that also we can do it, but I'm not doing that one. For understanding better way, I have created one button. So this button I have generated one event by using onClick. So whenever I click on this button, it is invoking the function or a method whose method name is send data. Inside this here, we have written the code to store some data by using emit, which is belonging to the event emitter here. Now what it takes some value. So we are passing some data. We are passing some data here. Next, lastly, what we have to do inside the parent component, whatever the selector we're using of the child, we have to bind that event. That is the event name, what we have created here, right? Equal to the function or the method by passing that event. So this function is belonging to what ma? Parent component, which is receiving this data from the event, which is sent by the child to the parent here. And inside that parent, he was binding the data inside the property. Okay. And finally is printing on the template here. Understood now? What only we're doing here now, right? So go to the child component. Whenever you click on this button, function has been called where you are emitting the data, and this we are using inside Virma parent.component.html. Sorry, parent.component.html. Can you see here now? And finally, it invoke this function. Or a method which we are receiving the data and we are binding inside the property of the parent. And finally, we are printing in the app.company.html. Okay, guys? I hope it's clear or any confusion here. Please let me know. Come on, guys, answer. I hope everyone got clarity now. So I have kept already all the things here. Okay, with an example, I kept in the notes. I'll be sharing here. So please practice this output decorator here. Okay, na? Please practice this output decorator. And I already kept the image also so that you can start looking here how exactly is working. Every points I've kept here clearly. Please practice this by today itself. Okay, na? So what we'll do, guys, tomorrow. Okay, na? Tomorrow you'll not get any disturbance. Today we have some special class. That's the reason, we found some challenges there. Okay, na? So tomorrow we'll be discussing, guys, the most important thing, that is view child. What? We're going to understand about what? View child, view children, child content, and the content children. Okay. So why we use this, all the things we'll try to understand in the tomorrow session. Fine. So I hope till here is okay now, everyone. Fine. So we'll catch up in tomorrow's session, guys. Okay. So till there, take care and bye. Thank you so much.